r/AskReddit. What is the creepiest glitch you've experienced in real life? Sometimes when I dream, and I wake up, I know it's a dream. I just know it's a dream. But I can't wake up. And the harder I try to wake up, or the more I realize I have to wake up, the scarier it gets. Even though nothing really changes, it feels like a darkness enveloping you as you try and wake up from your fake room. How do I know it's a fake room? Just some weird details, like how my wall looks a little too white, or the Christmas tree's lights are on when they're supposed to be off. Don't ask why I have one in my room and not the living room, lol. So then I go through like maybe 1-2 minutes of intense waking up, falling back asleep, trying to open my eyes, but then falling back asleep right after. As I said, the rooms are similar but not too similar, so I can just about tell when I'm in the real world and when I'm dreaming. Or perhaps both rooms are fake, and when I finally wake up, it's the real me in the real world. I dunno. Those are the scariest of dreams, even though they last for a few minutes tops because that's right before I'm about to wake up. This happens to be on a regular basis. I scream or try to make noise and my GF at the time would say I would mumble and talk. I could have full conversations with her through my sleep sometimes. I would essentially beg her to wake me up and release me from the scary environment I was in. I get this occasionally. I try to scream, but my husband says I just make these creepy moaning sounds. I have stressed how important it is to me that he wakes me up when this happens. He doesn't get that I am terrified and desperately trying to wake up. Sometimes, a moment or two before something happens, I'll remember I dreamed what was about to happen. Then it happens. This whole thing happens so fast. It's freaky. I have this happen to me sometimes too, but not as frequently as it happened in my childhood. I used to talk to some friends at school and then after the conversations remember that I either dreamed or has happened to me before. Same too. As a child, I'd be doing an activity, then a memory would sorta appear, and what I was doing felt somewhat familiar. Every time I just randomly think about the movie Groundhog Day, I see it everywhere. People mention it to me. It's on the TV, radio. I can't escape it. Reminds me of a weekend vacation my friends took, where we kept hearing the song House of the Rising Sun, to the point where we started to notice it. The last night we were there, we were just watching TV in our hotel room when an episode of I Think Supernatural came on where that song precedes bad things happening. We were all a bit stoned so it freaked us out. We were freaked out again when we heard it on the drive home. Same thing happened to me with Africa by Toto for like a good month. Just kept popping up everywhere I went. Great song though. Was taking the train home one afternoon and an old man was sitting a row ahead of me. He turned around and asked for directions to the hospital, and I told him which stop to get off at. Eventually, his stop arrives and he gets up to leave. But before he exits he turned and said, "Thank you. I'll see you later." I said, "Yeah, no problem." And again he said, "I'll see you later," and he looked me right in the eye. I said, "Sure. See you," and he got off the train and hobbled away with his cane. Thought it was a little weird he was adamant about seeing me around, but whatever. Freaky thing is, when I got off the train and to the bus station, about 5 minutes after boarding my bus I hear a voice that sounds like the old man. I looked out the bus window and sure enough, he was there at the bus station. Same clothes, hat, and cane. I know it was the same guy, but with his walking speed and the available bus train routes at the time I have zero clue how he got to the bus station right when I did. There are no buses near the hospital that go to that bus station, and my train was the only train that had just arrived at the bus station. I feel like he might have left your train car and quickly climbed into another one. Then he followed you to the bus stop to freak you out. Why? There's a lot of bored people out there who like fricking around with other people and doing pranks on strangers. Got to say, that sounds like a hilarious way to spend your retirement. In 2010 I was working for a transportation company as a dispatcher and I walked out to go home one afternoon and my foot went through the paved parking lot. After I took another step I looked all over and it was all solid. It was a weird random thing but I'll never forget it. This is so weird I've never told anyone, but once when I was in the 6th grade, I was watching 21 Jump Street and I was sitting on the carpet. I looked down at my hand and for like half a minute, second, or so, My hand sank into the carpet like the floor was liquid. I saw a ripply hand shape around my sunken hand. I blinked and it was gone. This was many years before I discovered alcohol or weed. Just saying. Perhaps you were very tired. I know from experience that when you're sleep deprived, you start seeing some weird ducking shit. I was once awake for 48 hours straight. Tiny little 20-minute long naps here and there due to a particularly shitty work schedule, and I distinctly remember seeing a static wild-looking set of arms waving at me from behind my neighbor's chimney. When my mom called to tell me that my grandpa died, I thought she said Papa died, and Papa is the nickname for my dad. I was crying uncontrollably, and when I finally figured out it was Grandpa, I was too embarrassed to admit that I thought it was my dad. I called him later and told him, and he just laughed. Anyway, fast forward 3 weeks and my dad dies too. Part of me thinks mishearing her was the universe preparing me to lose him. It was weird because it was like I lost him twice, and I'm still kind of waiting for someone to tell me it was all a mistake and it was actually someone else. Edit. I feel kind of bad because I've barely thought about Grandpa since my dad died. My grandma has it the worst because she lost her husband and a son in the same month. I thought someone was playing a prank on me when they told me my dad died. I still half expect him to call me and have dreams of him being alive and a part of our lives again. Always sucks waking up and feeling like I've lost him again. Like an eternity of the universe pulling my leg. I was convinced my grandma was playing an awful prank on me when she called to tell me my younger brother died. I just went to bed after an overnight shift and woke up to the horrible news. I remember she was crying telling me he died, and all I did was yell at her about how awful of a joke this was, and it was absolutely not funny. It took me a few minutes before I realized it wasn't some sort of joke. My grandma was definitely not a prankster, and he was indeed dead. It took me hearing his time of death from the funeral director before I really truly believed it. And honestly, to this day, time passes by so quickly that it almost seems as if I just haven't talked to him in a while. Until I remember I can't just call him or hang out and laugh. Sorry for the rambling, and I sympathize with your loss. Had a bonfire at a family member's home. They put a sheet of metal on a concrete slab, then built the bonfire on top. No one thought about what happens when you make a hot spot in the middle of a frozen concrete slab. The concrete expands with nowhere to go, so it literally explodes. I was the closest to the fire. When it exploded, I had enough time to check where the debris was going to see that I wasn't going to be hit. Look over at my mother and think, I should move anyway so she doesn't freak out. So then I calmly stood up and backed away from the fire while laying down the chair I was sitting in, so it would fit between my legs while I stepped backwards. At least that's what I thought. My cousin came up to me after and said he'd never seen anyone move as fast as I did. Never investigated this phenomenon personally, but you might be similar to a family friend of ours that has a faster blink speed. Birds naturally have a fast blink speed. I say that in quotes because I'm not sure if that's the right term, and perceive the world in a way that allows them to react to stimuli a lot faster than we can. Our family friend is a hunter that will shoot down grouse that take off from the scrubland faster than anyone else in the hunting party can even raise their rifle. I mean, maybe he just has very bad hunting buddies. I wouldn't know. But I've been told his reaction speed is truly uncanny. Maybe you're like him and a little superhuman. Could be that, or an extreme adrenaline rush. I read a story about the crazy things adrenaline can do to our bodies. And one anecdote was from a cop in a shootout who looked over his shoulder and wondered why there was a beer can floating next to him. It was his own ejected shell casing. Adrenaline can have some pretty intense impacts on our perception of time and distance. Every time I learn a new word that I've never previously seen, it will randomly start popping up in places like a book or a Reddit comment. Bader-Meinhof phenomenon. In 6th grade I called my mom to let her know my dad was about to head her way to drop my little sister and I off. Divorced parents. When she answered I said, Mama, and my mom frantically asked, my name, is that you? I said yes. She asked where I was. I said Daddy's house. We're about to come home now. Just wanted to let you know. Love you, Mama. She asked me, who's Daddy? Where are you? Are you okay? Obviously I was confused and just answered, Mama, I'm fine. I'm okay. I love you. I'll see you soon. She said she loved me too. tried to get me to stay on the phone and I just hung up. My dad later got a call and visit from the police. As it turns out, I'd accidentally dialed the number of a woman whose daughter had the same name as me and had gone missing. Everything was cleared up very quickly, but I always thought it wasn't a mistake that I dialed the wrong number. Maybe it was that woman's daughter saying goodbye. Poor woman. She must have been given so much false hope from that phone call. Obviously the story is mind-blowing, but my heart just hurts for her. This is eerie. Nothing nearly as creepy as some of the other ones, but I was at Burger King and I was playing in their little playground area. You know, the ones with all the tunnels, stairs, IDK if it's the right term, but anyway. I distinctly remember going in circles in this one tunnel for like 4 or 5 rounds until I stopped and thought, wait, why am I going in circles? And then I continued and realized that the tunnel didn't go in circles, but it led up. Thing is, less than a minute ago I was going around and around in the same tunnel, over and over again. So I retraced my steps, went through the tunnel again, and arrived at the top once more. It was like a time loop that broke. Maybe I was just young and wasn't paying attention and was just exiting the tunnel and just going back in, or I was an idiot kid. But this really scared me as a 9-year-old. This scares me now as a 21-year-old. What is this? The staircase from Mario 64? I had a dream an old friend, who I hadn't spoken to or seen around or anything in about 2 years, died, and I went to his funeral. I woke up and thought, whoa, that's weird, and went to check his Facebook to see what he was up to. He had gone missing a few days previous, but his body wasn't found until over a year later. Oh wow, scary. Right, I had someone tell me while he was missing to tell his mother about my dream. I could never do that because obviously the whole thing just sounds absurd, but watching them keep searching for that year was hard. This is kinda mild. I grew up in this town and know that where I've built my current house used to be a farm for cattle. It's now a housing development. Just after I moved in, a week, maybe 2, I had gotten up to use the toilet. At this stage, there were no fences. The lots around me were all empty, and aside from the infrastructure, it was still pretty much paddock. As I'm hanging a leak, I am looking out the window and see a shadow cast in the moon. The sound of a cowbell rings impossibly loud in my ear, and then a moo could be heard in the distance. Now I think I'm haunted by a damn cow. Guess I'll deal with it like all my hauntings. Stand naked in my doorway, backlit by my computer monitor, and flex while telling them to duck off. Works every time. Bruh. When I was little, my family was at my grandparents' place. They had a pool in the back, and as kids were swimming while our parents ate on the porch. I, being a devious 8-year-old, decided to swim into the deep end where I was not yet allowed. Being cocky and overconfident about my ability to swim, I dove down and touched the bottom of the pool. I stayed down there for a moment before I felt I needed air. I started to swim up, but I realized that I needed air a lot more urgently than I had previously thought. I felt my lungs burning and thought to myself that I needed air now. Still another 1.5 feet underwater, I took a breath. Weirdly enough, it felt as though I had breathed in air. I broke the surface and tried to cough out whatever water would be in my lungs, but there was nothing. I didn't find it very odd at the time, but now I think about it often. Something similar happened to me when I was about 5 years old. I was playing in a pool on vacation with my grandparents. Somehow I ended up in deeper water than I realized and couldn't push up from the bottom fast enough. I stalled out somewhere in the middle and could not touch the bottom, but also could not pull myself upward because I wasn't a strong swimmer. It felt like my lungs were on fire because I needed air so bad, and I finally gasped, but instead of getting water, I got air. There were bubbles around me that hadn't been there before and disappeared as soon as I realized I had taken a breath. I was reminded of it a few years later when playing Sonic the Hedgehog on Sega. There is a mechanic where he can go underwater and breathe air bubbles to stay alive. I was the only person in the pool and wasn't even supposed to be in the pool unsupervised. No one knew I was there, and my grandfather found me a few minutes after I came out of the pool. I probably should have died. I honestly thought I was the only person who ever experienced something like this. It is comforting to know I am not alone. Your double in a parallel universe gave you their last breath of air, giving you life and ending their own. I was walking outside at 2 AM, looking at my phone and listening to music with my headphones. I was completely zoned out. I was about to cross a street and briefly glanced if there was a car coming. I looked the wrong way, and if the light was green or not. Right as I am in the middle of the road, a car is basically a meter away from me, and the last thing I see are the blinding headlights right below my knees and the horn blaring through my music. A fraction of a second passes and I almost fall off my feet because I was expecting the impact and bracing for it. I open my eyes and see myself good 10 feet away from the edge of the road. The song had changed. The light for the cars is green and I see the red taillights of a lone car driving down along the road. My heart is pounding out of my chest and I had to sit down for a while. I get home and start reading about near-death experiences and I stumble on an idea called quantum immortality. Not sure if it messed me up even more. But the idea is that if you die in one parallel universe, your consciousness still continues in the ones where you live. I was more heartbroken about the thought of my mother having to bury me in my original universe than I was about my own death. I feel like the most plausible thing is that you probably narrowly dodged being hit by the car, and the real glitch was your adrenaline spiked brain going into such a weird panic state that you had a half-minute memory lapse. Strange shit starts happening in perceived near-death situations. Still creepy. Quantum immortality. This the one where the theory is something like you being inside a box with a bomb and every 3 seconds the bomb has a chance to explode. Was something about the longer you stay alive you would essentially be immortal due to the chances you had taken with it. Lost my keys while over at a friend's house and was using a spare for almost a week. Found them sitting in the driver's seat when it was parked at my own place, miles away from where I lost them. That's a bit creepy. Or did they fall out of a jacket pocket or something? If not, creepy. Maybe the friend left them there. Back in the mid 1990s I had a dream that I went to visit my cousin. We live in different states, and her family was sad because someone close to their family had died. It bothered me enough that I mentioned it to my wife. My wife said that I should email my cousin and ask her if everyone is okay. I sent off an email asking if everyone is okay because I had this dream, explaining the dream, but I am probably just being silly. She emails me back the next day and says no, I am not being silly. An uncle of her husband's had died recently and that they were very close to him. From 6th to 8th I had felt like my world just repeated itself because I remember talking about something a few weeks ago, then I relived the same experience and the scariest thing was I knew it was coming, and when I realized it I had a frozen moment of thought. I still get this. I'll have a dream where I am doing some mundane task like walking around a mall and hear/see something normal, but specific. I forget about it for months, until I get that major deja vu. Last time it happened, I caught it quickly and blurted out the description of the next person who would come around the corner and got it exactly right. It feels really strange when it happens. I know what you're talking about, and I think it's just a mix of deja vu as well as the way memory works. It's widely accepted that deja vu is a malfunction with how your brain handles short-term and long-term memories. If I recall correctly, it's your brain encoding what it's taking into long-term memory by mistake, which makes you feel like you've lived that moment before. But then due to memory being notoriously bad and easily manipulable, we associate that moment with being from a dream. And the more we think about it, the more we convince ourselves of a false memory of a dream. It's so easy to consciously plant false memories. So it's not surprising that we could subconsciously create the false memory of this moment of deja vu appearing in a dream at one point. That part is my own theory though. One night my dad was tucking me in when I was 8 years old. He said goodnight and I replied goodbye. He asked me why I said bye and we laughed it off. It was just an accident. The next morning my brother found him passed in the living room. He had a heart attack in the middle of the night at the age of 48. Jesus. Sorry for your loss. Also, that's creepy as hell. When I was a little kid, like around 6-7, my family got a pet hamster/gerbil whatever. I remember the first day we got him I played with him, went upstairs for bed, fell asleep, woke up, came back downstairs, and he was dead. I was really sad that the pet we had just gotten was dead, and my parents informed me we had him for a year before he died. I literally have no recollection of that entire year. I just get a hamster, fall asleep, miss a year of my life, wake up, Hamster's dead. It's trippy thinking about it now. That's weird AF. Are you sure your parents weren't just messing with you? They probably were, because they didn't want to buy a new hamster so soon. But I hope they weren't. These things can cause serious trauma. While this may not seem creepy, I can tell you the experience most definitely was creepy. This happened when I was 8 and working in the yard with my mom. My mother and I were doing the spring planting in the flower beds around the house. I went inside for a pee break, and on my way to the bathroom I had to walk through the living room. I entered the LR through the kitchen, looked up, and on the other side of the LR, I saw sitting on the couch none other than my sister. She was wearing her school uniform and was looking towards me, but not at me. Never said a word. Nothing really unusual, right? What makes this a glitch? My sister was hundreds of miles away at boarding school, not helping us plant flowers, and certainly not sitting at the edge of the couch giving me a blank stare. My little 8-year-old self reversed course and locked himself in the half bath until he regained the courage to go back through the house and finish planting hostas. This may not seem creepy, that is ducking terrifying. One night when I was a teenager, I got up to use the bathroom, and I looked down the stairs from the hallway and I saw my then 14-year-old brother walking past the downstairs corridor from one room to another. I knew it was him because of his longish hair that he had at the time, and his gait. I even saw his baggy jeans shape. It was the mid-zeros. I thought it was out of character and weird for him to be walking around in the dark and at that hour in day clothes. But I thought nothing more of it and went to the bathroom. The next morning when I asked him what he was doing last night, he said he never went downstairs. As far as I know, he doesn't and never has sleepwalked. Bro, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content. It's free and that's a great price.